Good morning. Apologies, I'm just coming in this morning. It's been a rather hectic morning. I had to bend underneath my tires today to change tires. My tire deflected in the middle of the road, and I didn't have a choice but to do exactly what. So I now understand when they say what men can do, women can also do. Maybe not better, but at least when it comes to changing tires, we do our best. It may take us a longer period, but we definitely get to do it. So yes, kudos to all the men out there doing the work of a vulcanizer. I see it, and kudos to the work that our drivers do when we are sitting pretty at the back of the car, and then the tire just deflates, and then you stand up, you just walk away from the car, feeling all like I can't get my hands dirty. I'm just not that kind of woman. I'm not meant to get my hands dirty. God help you. What happened to me this morning where there was no help will happen, and then you see, except for one young, very young man who quickly came to my rescue when he saw that my wheel spanner wasn't working, and I said to myself, I hold this boy a gift. I know him very well, so I think I owe him a gift for thinking it was necessary to come to my rescue this morning. All right, it's the Bumper Breakfast Thursday edition, and it's usually the day we talk politics. We look into the stories that happened, and we'll have a guest in the studio this morning. Mr. Akin Fatunke is in the studio this morning. Mr. Akin Fatunke, for those who are watching the Bumper Breakfast for the first time, this is 2022, and it's the first time Mr. Fatunke will be here in the studio in 2022. And Mr. Fatunke is an elder statesman with wealth of knowledge in accounting, economics, in politics, and of course governance. Is a trainer's trainer, and so you know what we're talking about. Good morning, sir. Good to have you.
Yeah, good to have me here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year 2022. Sorry about what happened to you. Okay. They say you should not say sorry for that since you didn't cause it.
Obviously.
And there is a clear statement from what we have said just now. Our female folks should get ready.
Get ready. It's important.
Times like this, so
it's quite
changing tires. Looking after fire extinguishers.
I think that's one of the things that they should teach us when we go to driving school.
I tell you, and you're giving kudos to the men.
Yeah.
Let's also give kudos
to the drivers.
And the drivers. Let's also give kudos to the girls, who the boys must also, or the men must also learn how to cook, take care of the babies, take care of some of the soft things. It must be black and white together, playing for orchestra on a piano. Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians and friends of Nigeria. It's nice to be here to listen.
All right, it's nice to be here with you this beautiful morning. Let me take a quick break. When I return, we're looking at the stories in the papers, and of course, we'll be taking a look, beginning with the story of what happened with Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu 2 days ago at Magodo. I'm interested in that story, and I'd like Mr. Fatunke to share his perspective as well after this break.
brother, my sister, papa, mama, and pikin. Corona, no big pass us. We go fight time, we go win. As long as we remember to always do the right thing. Wash your hands, love each other, we go win. Oh. Corona, na the virus, we dey worry human being. E no get Lego, but e dey waka from person to person. But we fit beat time, we fit stop time if we maintain good hygiene and practice social distancing. We go, we know. No shaking hands with your neighbor. Blow them a kiss from afar. Use soap and water to wage war. Let's show we are special, we're courageous, we are awesome human beings. We dey super, we get power, we can conquer anything. If we hear word and obey laws and exercise discipline. Wash your hands, love each other, we go, we know. If it be like say you know well, like it's something they do you. And you feel say, you believe say, you get to see they do you. And your body no grisogy, like it's something they do you. No let panic finish you, you go we know. Self-isolate for the sake of all the people that you love. Don't go spreading rumors, cause fake news won't help anyone. You are special, you're courageous, you're a caged human being. You too much, oh, you get power, you can conquer anything. Only if you hear word and obey laws and exercise discipline. Wash your hands, love one another, we go, we know. My brother, my sister, papa, mama, and pikin. COVID-19, no big pass, we go fight and we go win. Just as long as we remember to always do the right thing. Wash your hands, love each other, we go, we know.
Welcome back to the Bumper Breakfast. Yes, we're talking about the stories that made the front page of the papers this morning. And I want to begin with the Guardian newspaper, the banner headline of the Guardian newspaper. My director can put it up there, and then we take a look at these stories together. Now, some of these stories, I saw one particular one where Governor Akeredolu, Aketi for short, Rotimi Akeredolu, was accusing soldiers of inducing the jailbreaks in Ondo State. He was specific about how these all back and forth began. Yesterday, also in the news, it was announced that another jailbreak, happened as well. Attack on police and all that. The Ondo State governor has condemned the withdrawal of officers of the Nigerian Army from correctional centers and accused the army of inducing the jailbreaks. He received a briefing of the situation from the Commissioner of Police, Oyediran Oyeyemi, and expressed concern that the action could encourage jailbreaks in the state and other parts of the country. Said he wondered why soldiers would be withdrawn from correctional centers, which also belong to the federal government. It belongs to the federal government. You withdrew the soldiers from there. But of course, while we're still taking a look at the stories, the Southwest governors have countered Buhari on state police, and they insist on Amotekun. That's also another story on the front page, banner headline, particularly on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. More stories. You have riders like why state police is not an option. Buhari defends his stand. He had a conversation on Channels Television yesterday. PDP chair, president is comfortable with killings in the land. Just coming from the PDP chairman. Southwest governors fault current federalism, condemn police officers' disrespect of Babajide Sanwo-Olu, insist Lagos must deploy Amotekun now. Malami confirms sending policemen to Magodo and slams the Southwest governors' criticism. Wow. And then Dawn Commission, ARG, Okorie, others reiterate call for state police. Magodo invasion illegal, only restructuring can save Nigeria, says Adegboruwa and Oguye. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari restated his opposition to the state governments having their own police. The president made this known in an interview. He said state police is not an option, as in he was quoted as saying state police is not an option. Mr. Fatuke, what do you think? Let's begin with that comment of the federal government. It is obvious to everybody that the Nigerian police force cannot do enough.
Thank you very much, Tomi Singh. You know, in public discourse such as this, one tries to be as much as possible to be very balanced. And the argument of Mr. President is not far-fetched. Of course, students of politics, students of contemporary Nigerian history readily tell you that state police has its downsides. And Mr. President quoted that. When he was asked, and he said, okay, between the state governors and their local governments, you bring in the issue of state police. What if that governor now becomes so unwieldy and decides to use the police, the instrument of police against his opponents? Very true. Very, very true. And to the extent also that, okay, you want to go and remove a local government chairman that is insisting on his rights, and you, the almighty governor, don't like him from Adam, you might
decide to manipulate the system.
To use the system. In the First Republic, we remember somehow, somewhat, how the instrumentality of state police, well, okay, regional police, or some form of autonomy to the regions were manipulated, and we remember the, you know, the wild west. Good logic, it sounds, but the flip side of it is, so we don't have state police, we have central command. And under this same central command that Mr. President is supporting, we haven't seen efficiency, we haven't seen effectiveness, we've seen virtually everything that, you know, you talk about.
The ineptitude of the police force.
So what we are saying basically is that the inefficiencies and the mindsets that we have at the local level are the people that go to the center to do exactly the same. You know, when Alexander Pope talked about looking at forms of government, that fools should contend. It's like fools contending on this matter. If the mindset is not for fairness, for equity, and for justice, and if you are somebody who will always, you know, defer to undermining rule of law, morality, and ethics.
Because of history?
Either way, still does not go. So, and as they say, it is only a foolish woman and a foolish man, as the case might be, that will continue to try the same thing or go the same path and thinking of getting a different result. Another reason is the fact that the federating units that we have in Nigeria, 36 and Federal Capital Territory, plus the Federal Capital Territory, how many of them are viable? Mr. President spoke about viability of being able to fund state police. Oh, okay, Lagos state government can do it. A few states can do it. What about states that are not even
viable? But Mr. Fatuke, I want you to hold that thought a little bit, and then let's go to this fact. One of the things that Mr. President also said is the fact that find out the relationship between the local governments and the state government. Are they getting, are the third tier of government getting what is due from the state government? And I'm asking the question now, because they are not getting what is due from the state government, as this empowered, or does this now mean that the federal government should superimpose itself on the state government? Is that what federalism? Because it looks as if we're no longer practicing federalism to me. You know, I had a post yesterday, and I was kind of like thinking, the government we studied in secondary school, and the careful way our teachers explained to us what federalism, unitarianism, communism, and all of the systems of government, what exactly they are. The systems of government, what we practice, doesn't seem to me from that government perspective like federalism. Does this now mean that the federal government can superimpose itself on the state government, irrespective of under the guise or because the state government is not giving its due, the local government its due?
Clearly, the Constitution, no matter how wrought it is very clear. There is no way the federal government can superimpose or induce or force itself on states. Just like the states are not supposed to
do the same to the local.
So the point is clear. If your point this morning in your statement is to ask if we are practicing federalism, of course we are practicing federalism in the reverse.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so is
federalism
the leasing away, then we have the federal spelt from the back.
I tell you, it is more of, even unitary, it's more of authoritarian.
Oh, authoritarianism.
Do what I say and not what I do.
So it's the fact that we tell our children, don't do what I do, just do what I say.
If it suits you, fine. You say you are practicing federal. If things change a little bit, you say you are doing federal, and then you do exactly, you know, the opposite. And the whole thing got K-leg from 1999. I will just mention this in passing, that our leaders, our politicians have not only been self-serving, they have come on based on the fact that if it suits them, they go ahead and do. Or how else will you explain that in 1999, May 29, when retired General Obasanjo became president of this country and was sworn in, there was no constitution. The constitution was only released a few days after. Where is that kind of thing done? In other words, I am saying to you, Professor Yadudu and his group were busy tinkering and putting a few things together. And I dare say, my dear president at that time, Buhari, Obasanjo was very giddy, happy. The constitution that brought you in, that you have not read, 1, 2, okay, eventually the whole thing was manipulated, and that's the beginning of the problems that we have now. And you did not feel that constitution is a contraption that cannot take Nigeria forward, and virtually all others after him.
And we're still using the same constitution.
And wasn't by President Muhammadu Buhari, who, like lawyers say, see a lacuna, see, agree, disagree, to agree, and has decided to knock the nail into our coffin in terms of our fault lines. My point, therefore, is we are not practicing a federal constitution. the constitution itself on paper lies on its head, and different leaders have come. Look, the point I am also making is that beyond Buhari, go and bring an angel to run this constitution that you are talking about is going to fall flat and terrible on his face.
Let's look at this, Mr. Fatunke. Now, one of the things that also came up in that conversation, which also brings to mind, you know, the issue of federalism, the issue of the amendment of our constitution, and all of that. Nigerians may not trust this crop of legislators to do the job that is needed to take the country to where it needs to be legally. When we're talking about the rule of law, Nigerians may not, I use the word may not trust this set of people. However, they've continued to ask that amend the constitution. Like you said, a few people tinkering a document. That's exactly what is happening as well now. Representatives of the people tinkering the document in such a way that will favor the people, that should rather favor the people. But the electoral amendment bill is another one. The president mentioned also yesterday that if they add consensus candidates and indirect primaries into the constitution, into the electoral amendment bill, it will definitely sign it. Isn't that taking us back to where we were in
a manner of speaking? Yes and no. I have always argued, call it direct, call it indirect, and call it now being introduced a shade in between of consensus. Yorubas, from where I come, talk about Omi Eko, the pap water and the pap is still of the same family, just a bit of a shade. Yes, Mr. President has a point in saying that the law should not prescribe for parties. That assumes that the parties themselves must be practicing internal democracy.
And that's the question, Mr. Fatunke. You are familiar with the system of government. Let's look at the two big ways in the country, the PDP, the APC. Which of them is practicing internal democracy? I
dare say no. When it suits you, you shift to the right. If it doesn't suit you, you shift to the left. And Mr. President was asked that in direct primaries brought you on, and he made a statement. I'd like people to go on the line and look at that statement. He kept on saying, as far as this was concerned, do you know what we did to uproot PDP? My point is, Mr. President has made his point known. The tribunes of the people, or the representatives of the people, that's what they are called, have also said, yes, there is no way they can upturn or veto, and that is clear. What remains in the minds of Nigerians is that the average Nigerian, including yours sincerely, I don't trust anybody, including Mr. President, in terms of saying what he says sometimes.
But Mr. President is clear, and I think his thoughts and direction
I am aware Mr. President is clear.
His thoughts agree with his actions, don't you think?
I will believe him.
Even if you don't agree with what he said, his thoughts agree with his actions.
I have agreed to the extent that he says, allow parties to choose whatever it is
that works for them.
And if that is done,
which means we may not necessarily get the best hand.
If that is done, listen, if that is done, I'm going to append my signature to the Electoral Bill 2010 as amended. He said it. And I think what's achieved, I've had statements made by this president, made by people that you would never, that you consider to be men and women of honor, And then at the last minute, some things, will now then change. Let me tell you what I'm making allusion to. If that is the only thing
that is stopping,
that should be taken off, if electoral, voting, electoral counting, electronic, excuse me,
and all of that is acceptable,
are acceptable, and Mr. President will have
absolutely
the courage to act to his promise that he made on television yesterday, and I think kudos.
So we look forward
we
to...
need a situation where a journey of 1,000 miles
begins to
even if you shake without moving, it's still something to look for. Is he going to live to that promise, or are we going to get into a situation that we got into in times past, in the past 6-7 years,
yes,
and things have been said openly, and for whatever reason they will now then come back and tell you that we have not thought it through properly, or whatever it is, and then at the last minute you begin to see people dancing to the right and to the left. So it's good news if that promise can be kept. The truth of the matter is that, Mr. President, no matter how we look at this, very few people trust you, very few people in our country believe you. And somebody was asking you of legacy yesterday. This is the time for you to say exactly what you have promised, not go back into a kitchen cabinet and then people begin to allow you to dance right and to dance left. I think Nigerians have given you a fair chance. I think the legislators have given you such respect by your pronouncement yesterday to say that it's the same party, and they have bent backwards. And you said you are going to sign that electoral bill, and you wanted to make sure, like you promised the Americans and the world, that you are going to have a free and fair election, which is still a mirage based on what we need to see. But in that journey of 1,000 miles, that first step that you say you are going to take, we'd like to see it. I'd like to see the Electoral Amendment Act signed immediately and promptly by you, the same way you signed the Finance Act 2021, though you had one or two reservations. That's what I expect from statesmen and stateswomen. Thank you.
All right, I want to take a very quick break. When we return, we're still discussing the stories in the papers, and now we want to talk about Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the altercation and the reaction of the Southwest governors about that matter. If the video is... Welcome back to the Bumper Breakfast. Let's have that conversation. Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, who is, of course, talking for the Southwest governors, yesterday made his point obvious. But before I take his point and delve a little bit into what is said yesterday, let's take a look at that video. I like to see that altercation between the state governor, Governor Babajide. I mean, this is my governor. And my governor is amiable, very nice. Is the kind of person that will speak his mind, irrespective of what occurred. So before the meeting that the governor had with the Magodo residents and all the parties involved yesterday, can we go back to 2 days ago and talk about the altercation between the governor and the policeman?
The CSU will let it take.
Governor is here, please.
Governor is here, please. Governor is here, please. Guys,
keep recording, guys. Record this.
And this is my estate. Calm down.
Yes, sir. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. So, my name is Kineton. Who are you? I'm Bimbola Oyewole, the Chief Secretary of Police. Where is your base? I'm from Abuja, sir. Okay, so we are not in Lagos State. I'm not in Lagos. We made this place our base for the purpose of this operation, sir. What is the operation? The operation is all about executing the Supreme Court judgment that has to do with Magodo. Okay, so do you have a copy of the Supreme Court? I don't have it at hand here, but it's been given to them ever before now. No. It's been given to the residents ever before now. No, the court order is not the residents, it's the government. So the government has been given. Yes, sir. Okay? Yes, sir. So whatever court order you are talking, which you are not even competent to know, which you don't even know anything about, is not to the residents. It's a case between the supposed people and the Lagos State government. Thank you. So it has nothing to do with the residents of the state. Please, can you call your superior in Abuja that you need to deactivate and need to leave Lagos now? Please, can you call your superior in Abuja and tell them that the governor is here and I'm the chief security officer and that you don't have any business to be in my state right now and that I want you to disengage forthwith from here. Thank you very much, sir. Your Excellency, sir. I'm not here on my own orders. That's why I'm asking you to make a phone call and tell them, your superior, that I'm here, standing in front of you. Make that phone call. Thank you, sir. I'm here on instruction of this Special Bureau of Police to the AGF, sir. And that is why I'm here. I'm too small or too low to call them. Your Excellency, sir, with due respect, sir, you can call them directly, sir. So that they will ask us to leave. So Inspector here also asked you to come. I'm here on instruction of Inspector General of Police to the AGF and to the General of Defense. I have spoken to the Attorney General at this moment, okay. So he's not aware that you are here. But we are expecting the call that we should disengage. That's what I'm saying to you. Yes, sir. Because when I make the phone call, it will be tougher. If you can call and say that the governor is there in front of you, what should you do? It is not my duty to call because I'm too low to do that, sir. Okay. If you call... So where are your men? My men are here. They are all over the estate. How many men do you have here? I have several of them, sir. No, what number? I cannot precisely tell you the number.
Welcome back. That was the conversation that ensued between Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State and the CSP that led the men to Magodo. Now, number one point, they're not from Lagos. They're not officers in Lagos. They're not familiar with Lagos. But he was able to tell us two things. He was there on the instruction of the Inspector General of Police through the AGF, through the Attorney General of the Federation. And he was in Magodo. The governor was not aware that men, policemen, police officers were sent all the way from Abuja to Lagos, to Magodo, pardon me, and they are present, like he said, scattered in the estate. The number, nobody knows. Their position, nobody knows. What were they there to do? He made the second statement. They were there to enforce the Supreme Court judgment. And I'm asking the question, Mr. Fatunde, exactly what points did we begin to send policemen from the Inspector General of Police's office through the Attorney General of the Federation to enforce a Supreme Court judgment? Did we do the same when it was the case of releasing El-Zakzaky? Did we do the same when it was cases, Supreme Court judgments that were given? You know, there are so many of them. And I'm just wondering. But in this case, it had to do with property, it had to do with the Lagos State government, and policemen left Abuja, came to Lagos, took over the security of an estate. The state governor was not aware. He didn't even know where they came from.
Yes, to be seen, I might go on the other side of the fence.
No problem.
And maybe sound a little bit, what should I say, shake the table.
The table a
a
bit.
bit.
Please go ahead.
The whole of the episode of what we saw in Magodo can be summarized under who is in charge, who is in control. Our show. And I see situations where the federal government, in the way Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari has decided his best fit to appoint, skill, positions of authority on a trajectory to make a decision that, let's borrow from Babangida, we are not just in power, we are in control. And if there is anything that has happened in there, forget about the logics about morality, the due process, and what have you. A clear statement has been made. Constitution or no constitution, respect for constitutional authorities, what is normal or abnormal, notwithstanding, we are in control, and we control from the center. You like it, take it. You don't like it, you might as well go to the capital H, you know. I don't want to say that. You might as well just find your way to perdition. That was clear. You may be a great contributor. You may be a state of excellence. You may be the most in terms of contributing to the center. In terms,
But it doesn't matter if you want to shake you, if you want to.
that is you. You may, when it comes to digital economy, when it comes to technology, when it comes to
Revenue
economy,
generation and the rest of it.
we are not taking that away from you. But overall,
When it
in
comes to power.
all what you have, we can't compete with you in that direction. The only way is that we have the lever of control and we can do and undo, pure and simple. Now,
Brings me to one thing I want you to actually speak about.
Okay,
You know, one of the reasons why I kept mentioning that they came from Abuja, the governor was not aware. Immediately that conversation ensued and I listened to it. It reminded me of what happened during the NSAS, and we're talking about who sent the army or who didn't send the army.
if that did not send enough direct control, I mean, let me step back a little bit. I remember when Asiwaju Bola Tinubu was out there on medical, and he made a statement in London. In fact, when he got back to Nigeria, he said he's very, very sure it could not have been that some levers of control were controlling things from the center, and they will come and unleash that
The
on Lagos.
mayhem on Lagos.
What did we find? Again, we are not just in control, we are in power. And irrespective of the way you look at it. Now, of course, by the time you go to these little issues here and there, it's an implication that just Lagos state government, could be any state or the federation, and
True.
people who are making and touting that if it was PDP's wiki, it will not happen. Don't let us continue to deceive ourselves.
Joy Nunes' house was
strategists
there was a siege on Joy
are
Nunes' house.
pursuing a stratagem, and they are making a clear statement that we are not running a federation, and no matter what, we may be in the same party, we may be in the same boat, but we have the lever of control. It therefore means, to me, that hooded persons that went to Imo, hooded persons that went to the National Assembly, you know, and during Jonathan's, you know, well, is it Jonathan's time versus Buhari when he came in? Hooded persons are going around, and hooded persons can get into, now listen, any of the state houses where we have our governors, and they can be whisked away without a quorum.
Also,
now when that is now then done, this is now the worst aspect. People now have the audacity to now then come that yes, I did it, and there is absolutely
nothing wrong with it
that you can do about it.
So,
we are
Mr.
in a state of anarchy.
Another one happened
in Nigeria,
and I want us to, you see, all of these things are linked. So when they say it cannot happen to in PDP's weakest state, and that's Rivers State, brings to mind exactly what happened in Joy Nune's house. I remember the last time our house was besieged. That was during the time when the NDDC probe was going on.
Yes.
It was the governor himself that practically came to rescue her. And asking the question, where did those officers, where did those men,
where did they come from?
Where did they come from?
The difference this time, and that's why I told you I wanted to be on the other side.
But she was there yesterday. The same thing happened to her yesterday.
Hey, you listen. And this is the reason why I said when it suits your purpose, you use the instrumentality of law to begin to now make untoward things. During the Wike's issue, there was no Supreme Court judgment of 2012, which my learned Attorney General is basing his power on to come and enforce.
In
number
estates, 2, without informing the government.
Unlike during the invasion that you are referring to with Wike, the one of Lagos, hey, it's worse. Let me tell you, we had a CSP allegedly. We don't know his name, we don't know his rank, we don't know where he's from, we don't know if it's a
Don't forget that there is also the investigation going on with the judge's house.
He came all the way and acknowledged that
made his base.
Mr. Malami sent him. He had superiors
His inspector
at
general.
the back of our governor, yes, at that occasion.
Yes. His superiors who were much more senior to him.
A commissioner of police that had just been elevated
to an AIG.
He had all the altercation, and firm was the word.
And nobody could call. You see, the interesting
all
part,
I am saying to you is
somebody sent you on an assignment, but you couldn't call the person.
It beggars logic that the statement is now being made to Lagos State and the whole of the Federation. We are not just in power, we are in control. And you know,
actually,
power without control is katakata. The CSP made a statement. I don't want to give it to him. It meant to Mr. Excellency, you have to call him yourself. Mr. Excellency,
I cannot call
orders from you. I can take his right.
It doesn't work for the governor.
That is the robbed constitution that we are operating. And people should now know that that constitution
and so when Nigerians
cannot take us, and the Police Act cannot take us into any El Dorado. It can only. Now, that same constitution, as robbed as it is, in the mind of people who have conscience and morality, might even be used
properly.
Yorubas say that if they send you a slave errand, you come back. That CSP should have done a bit much more and should have applied, in my own sense, applied what some people would call wisdom. Solomon, when he was confronted with something like this, 2 women came, and then what did he do? He applied some modicum of wisdom. Now, let me take you back to the predecessor, one of the predecessors of Sanwo-Olu. Remember Fashola. Fashola, along the line, caught a military officer flouting the rules. Fashola had no control over that army officer. That army officer, knowing fully well that yes, I mean, he might as well just say, I'm not going to take orders from you. What did he do? He gave a salute.
because it's the government of the state.
It tells you, yes, we have a robbed system, we have a robbed constitution.
But some people still apply it.
It has gotten worsened. And under the nose of our president, who usually we want to stand aloof and says, I don't want to intervene in this, I don't want to intervene. See, your Rome or your Nigeria is burning while you are smoking pipe. It does not augur well at all. I'm not going to go into a bit of the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
The point I'm just making to you is, yes, those of you in the South continue to tout the fact that you have economy, you have this and stuff like that. The only thing that we have, and we are going to hold on to it, and it tells you, I'm going to throw this in and I'll keep quiet. It tells you that there are people at the helm of affairs, they are holding the reign of government, and they are making a point that under their nose, this thing that you are calling, let us restructure, will not happen under their noses.
So you, just before we round off this conversation, the Magodo standoff, you know, now comes to mind when people talk on national television, and a lot of public affairs analysts will say, as the chief security officer of the state, it reminds me of what the PDP, the deputy PDP chair in Zamfara was accusing Governor Bello Matawale of, that as the chief security officer of the state, he is not doing enough to
on a very good slight note, that statement made by Governor Sowolu, I trust my Nollywood and my, what do you call them now, our comedians will go to town with it, and it's going to be a bestseller.
Yes, it's going to be a bestseller soon.
It is a statement to the fact that must the governor have to say that
for you to know,
for all of us to know, for the CP, for the Inspector General of Police, for Malami to know? It is a sign of abysmal failure that Mr. Governor has to come out and say, do you know I'm governor, whether it is Wike, do you know this is not going to be, this should not be, and all that. And we keep on just falling over and above. There is a sinister motive, and there is a sinister strategy. I like Nigerians of all hues, including my brothers in the north, my sisters in the south, my compatriots in the center, and all Nigerians in diaspora, to begin to pay a little attention, more than scant attention, to what is happening in Nigeria. I think there are people who want to drive us to the wedge. They keep smiling at us, but their intention, using this same robbed constitution, I mentioned it at the beginning, that when, you know, retired General Obasanjo came in, and he was all happy, and he was sworn in on May 29, and at that level, I said, must it be sacrosanct? I must be sworn in on May 29. I want to see the constitution that I'm going to use. So they swore you in, and then 4 days after, they brought a constitution that is robbed, and you did not ask. Look, somebody has to look at this thing critically for me. That is the time we should all have been looking at those constitutions, but every other president that has come, including this one, just that this is now going to be my time, and I'm going to use it as best within my own understanding. It may not be altruistic, it may not be well. If you like it, if you don't like it, we have the reign of control. But I tell you something, the reign of control sometimes belongs to the Almighty Being, and it can make and decide to unmake. We must all keep our eyes open, and we must all be conscious. We must all support Mr. President in his promise to sign the electoral bill. We must get back to our hamlets and our homes and be ready not only to defend these votes, but to get the bald heads out of town, like Bamali would have said. Thank you.
All right, we seem to have some good parts of that conversation that the president had yesterday. Is the fact that finally the Gazette proscribing bandits as terrorists has finally been released. That Gazette declaring the bandits and our terrorists has been released by the federal government. So yes, that you know, play on words, we call them unknown gunmen, bandits, blah 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 blah. Finally, Gumi's bandits have now become terrorists? Should we still call them Gumis?
Oh, well,
That's something you should
what it means is that
non-state
actors should not go.
In our say, he's not speaking for them.
We are going to see. I mean, the devil is in the details. It's easy because it's cheap. Let's see how
in the details. The devil is in the details.
That is going to be dealt with. I'm happy, like you rightly said. How many months to the end of the year we have been at it. The joy for me is that yes, even though we must keep at saying and continue to say what is right, they pretend as if they are not listening. Eventually, a time is going to come where, by the way, was it that said, "Come has become," when come eventually will become, and we'll get our country, our nation back.
All right, well, this one story that I'd like us to take a look at talks about the grazing routes. The federal government, President Muhammadu Buhari, pardon me, has also insisted that grazing routes must stay, irrespective of what you think. PDP orders cake is the banner headline of the Punch newspaper this morning. Grazing routes. Buhari dismisses state police, but he insists on grazing routes. The opposition party, Afenifere, carpets the president for saying state police not an option. Ohanaeze plans meeting as the president dismisses plea for Nnamdi Kanu's release. He said we've got to go back to grazing routes to address farmers and herders. Clashes. Mr. Fetsuke, that smile was quite pregnant.
Yes, remember back in the days, with our mothers. God bless our mothers.
Mr. Fetsuke, before you hold that thought a little, let me delve into that story a little bit. Now, the president insisted that the establishment of grazing routes would solve the problem of farmers and herders clash in the country. It's been a while we heard that anyway. Farmers and herders are no longer clashing. Bandits have suddenly taken over. Are you not surprised that every stage of insecurity that we go through is one giving way for one? It used to be farmers and herders. No. It used to be cattle rustling. And then it became farmers and herders clashing. And then it became bandits, kidnapping people. So is it that crime is evolving, insecurity is evolving? Because now we want to resolve a problem that has not reared its ugly head in a couple of months.
I tell you, you are asking me why I smiled.
Yeah. You did smile.
And I was going to ask you to go back to the days of
our mothers.
And you are doing certain things that you know she would not like. I should give you a smile. Good boy. Good boy, good girl. But inside of you are sweating.
Because you are
going to meet your Golgotha very, very, very soon. Yeah, I like to say to Mr. President that despite hues and cries of the impracticability of what you are suggesting, is one permitted to say this on radio, that I don't think Mr. President has understood the dynamics of what we are talking about, the impracticability of what is said to be in the first place.
He has an advisor.
In the first place.
Who must have considered all of that.
How is he going to do that in the short term that he has, with the litigations, the impracticability? I think part of the problems that our rulership has is the fact that things are not thought through. It's easy for you to sit down and say, yeah, this is exactly what I'm going to do, without looking at that. You're making this point that he has advisors, and I'm not saying.
I'm not surprised that the advisors can actually recommend as part of the things that to amend in the Constitution.
I'm not saying he hasn't gotten advisors, but Mr. President understands it. You don't have to finish primary school to recognize the fact that the buck stops not on the advisor's table, but it stops on your table. I see a situation where Mr. President still does not understand. One, if Mr. President, according to what we've heard, operates a ranch. He has a ranch. And I am not aware that cows from his ranch have been going around. Why is he now then saying that
not everybody has the wherewithal to establish a ranch?
Oh, yes, not everybody has a wherewithal to establish a ranch. But do we have a wherewithal to now begin to create grazing routes? Is it just going to come from nowhere? If the penal, the northern stuff, he said he has asked, they should go and look for the Gazette. Mr. President, you need to see the Gazette yourself and see who has done what. Perhaps the Aso Rock that you are sitting in is on a grazing route, Mr. President, and we have to send you to Ajegunle to come. You know, because when you don't think through some of these things, it therefore means when Lord Acton said, "Power corrupts,"
and absolute power corrupts.
And
absolutely.
when absolute power becomes on you, you are not able to think. I made this point a few moments after this thing came in, and I said this thing is dead on arrival. And I'm also now making this point at the early part of 2022. Your talk, Mr. President, is dead on arrival. And it's not going to see the light of day. Yes, it's going to.
You think so? Because the president has approved the recommendations of a committee to review with dispatch 368 grazing sites across 25 states in the country to determine the level of encroachment. You know, speaking now, the ministers of agriculture from Adogbe now to Mahmoud, one of the issues is discussed with them is to go and get the Gazette of the past republics, especially of the northern states. There are cattle routes and grazing grounds, and headers are confined to those areas. Those that go outside it will be arrested.
I know.
So they have to go back to that system again.
I know Dale Carnegie says you cannot win an argument. So you could be there making that point. Okay. I remain where I am, making my point, and I make that boldly, not because I have any power, but I have some modicum of common sense and wisdom, having gone to school. I know certain things are just not practicable and are impossible. I have seen situations where men of power have done things. Donald Trump was going to do even worse things against you know, the normal tenets of the American morals, ways of life. Mr. President is coming out. He has level of power for up till about May 29. Hopefully, we are going to be able to now then change government. Nigerians cannot wait to have another breath of life. He's set in his ways. He's talked about cultural aspect of things. There are cultural aspects to Fulani herdsmen outside Nigeria, and they are thriving. They have not been allowed to be grazing on plains and destroying. He made a statement yesterday that, well, the local people, why don't you go to the local people and say that they've always been
coexisting together.
So what has
and he does not understand why people used to coexist and now fighting.
Is that under his watch, he has allowed our borders to be open, and even his fellow Fulanis who are governors are saying, Mr. President, you cannot be bringing your cousins and your in-laws. They will come and spoil the peace of the land. Mr. President is asking that on national television, oblivious of the fact that the ban that he opened has made the horse to bolt, and we need to really put a lot of things back. Well, I hope my people will not die for lack of understanding. I have a modicum of understanding. I'm not saying I have all the knowledge, but I repeat my statement here that this is dead on arrival. Okay.
I hope that Mr. Fatuke knows what he's talking about, because if you're saying it's dead on arrival and we are amending the constitution, I don't know why you want to do it. It looks as if the federal government is set to lay off workers. That's another very tough one on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning. Federal government is set to lay off workers. Severance package being worked out, says the minister, and Labour is kicking. Now, the federal government, unfolds the plan to reduce the size of its workforce. Government is working out an exit package for workers that will be affected. However, there was disquiet as Labour described the plan to sack workers as a reversal of the much advertised federal government employment drive. Minister Zainab Ahmed, Finance, Budget and National Planning Minister, said it was imperative to reduce the size of government because of the huge amount government spent on recurrent expenditure annually. Fears of rife that the merger of agencies being proposed will compound the unemployment crisis in the country. However, the minister said the government's mode of reducing the workforce will not be entirely in line with the Stephen Orasonye report. The government is working on an exit package to be paid to those that will be affected. It's only in Nigeria that the government is the biggest employer of labor anyway. But wanting to lay off workers?
But Mr. President, you had him say yesterday. What did he say to the youths? Which is true.
He said employment is not automatic.
It is not.
The fact that you went to school, education is not automatic.
Have education for you
does not mean you're going to get a job from the federal government.
Be entrepreneurial. You should. Gone are the days where you finish and then you have a car, you have a house, and stuff
given to you by the federal government.
You must begin to now think out of the box. Yes, Mr. President is right in saying that. But that is the end position. We must have policies that not only recognize the youth for what they are, you must give and reward creativity and make sure that with the kind of policies that we have will be such that, let's look at education. I know education is taking quite a large chunk, maybe next to I think we had infrastructure up there, and then we have, I think health is number 4, education is there. We need to revamp and strategize education. And Mr. President, for the things that you are prescribing for the youth to happen, I have to let you know, sir, you must restructure Nigeria. If you don't restructure Nigeria, that you say you don't understand, you don't know how it is going to happen, you cannot be now talking about the end stage, expecting Nigerians and the use of Nigeria, their creative powers, to be able to unleash what you are unleashing. That is what other countries have done. Other countries have also stopped this roaming in the wild, and they are making a lot of money for themselves. By the time you begin to look in that direction, I can tell you, Nigeria is waiting to unravel. We must restructure our mind, restructure our system. We must look at the rule of law. We must be fair. We must be equitable. Is the reason why the National Assembly cannot be trusted, because the way that local governments have been distributed, I think we have 774 minus 2 now.
Minus 2. But we still say 774, Mr. Fatuke, and I need to go.
It's skewed against the interests of certain other people. So that if we go to do a voting, that we need to restructure, if the large weight is skewed somewhere else, then that means we are on a tripod that is faltering. But I know Nigeria is going to survive. Keep safe Nigerians, keep your eyes open. We are going to get to the promised land.
Our guest this morning has been Mr. Akin Fatuke, elder statesman, and we've been talking so much about Nigeria. Like I said, Thursday conversations always dedicated to the project called Nigeria. We'll see you again tomorrow morning, and it's going to be all about entertainment, and of course we're going to be talking about women and politics as well. Have a beautiful day.